The process has been long and arduous for everyone involved.
This is Tomas Hofer, a man who paraded himself as a decent and patriotic citizen, but little did anyone know that he was a sick psychopath and rapist. He hid under the disguise of a seemingly ordinary real estate agent from Sydney, Australia. But behind his facade of professionalism and charm lay a dark secret that would send shockwaves through the community. Hofer was recently arrested on 8 counts of assault, revealing a chilling pattern of predatory behavior that had left women in fear and anguish. What makes Hofer's crimes even more disturbing is the calculated method he employed to lure his victims. Exploiting his position as a real estate agent, he cleverly advertised properties on a popular share house website, drawing unsuspected women into his trap. It's truly unsettling to think that a job meant to help people find their dream homes became the platform for Hofer's sinister intentions. Imagine the trust these women placed in him, believing they were embarking on a journey to find a home. Little did they know that Hofer had meticulously planned his moves, preying on their vulnerability and innocence. It's a testament to the lengths some individuals will go to satisfy their twisted desires. But wait till you find out how he successfully committed his dark fantasies. Hofer would first treat his female clients to a bar whenever any showed interest in the houses he advertised. He would offer them alcohol and ensure that they are sufficiently intoxicated before taking the unsuspecting victim back to the property for them to check the house. There, he would rape them until his desires were met. His first victim was a 23-year-old American tourist who reported the incident to the police. That same night, he also assaulted a 17-year-old girl and was arrested and charged in court. As trials and legal proceedings unfolded in 2016, the 17-year-old testified against Hofer and revealed how he would continually buy her alcohol and refuse to let her drink water when she tried to suppress the intoxication. The judge found Tomas guilty from the damning evidence, and he was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but was paroled after a few years. Later on, in an interview, the former house agent, who was convicted of sexual offences, maintained his innocence, leaving many perplexed about his mindset.
I count for sexual assault, of which was completely 100% consensual.
Citing the age of consent in his defence, which he claimed was 16. His refusal to apologise to his victims and his denial of their level of intoxication, suggesting they were only slightly drunk, added to the disturbing nature of his claims. To the surprise of many, he even attempted to appeal his conviction, hoping to overturn the verdict and secure his freedom. However, his hopes were dashed when the High Court of Australia swiftly threw out his case, upholding the earlier judgment. Justice was served, or so it seemed. Unfortunately, the story took a grim turn only a few weeks after the interview. Shockingly, the convicted sex offender re-offended, using the same method as before. The chilling realization that he had not learned from his previous actions sent shockwaves through the community. It became evident that his claims of innocence were nothing more than a facade to deceive the public and potentially gain sympathy. The consequences of his actions swiftly caught up with him. His parole, which had granted him a taste of freedom, was revoked and he was promptly sent back to jail. Tomas Hofer is just the first case of criminals with no remorse, but wait till you meet the next sex offender. Robert Shelby is a man you wouldn't want even your enemies to come in close contact with. In the Multnomah County Circuit Court, a chilling case involving Robert Shelby and 2 women unfolded. It all began in November 2015 when Shelby targeted his first victim, a homeless woman. The details of the attack are nothing short of horrifying. The first victim, who was kidnapped, raped and bitten, displayed immense courage as she managed to escape the clutches of her assailant. Despite being held captive overnight, she seized an opportunity and slipped through a bathroom window the following morning. The woman had endured threats and bites from Shelby every time she attempted to resist or flee. In fact, the visible bite marks on her skin served as haunting reminders of the ordeal she had endured. Fortunately, 2 compassionate construction workers found her on the street and stayed by her side until the police arrived. She received medical treatment for her injuries, and forensic nurses made note of the dental imprints left on her skin. The police were able to establish a connection between Shelby and the crime when he attacked another woman in March 2016. In the second incident, Shelby forcibly entered the home of a pharmacy technician after she refused to open the door for him. Once inside, he subjected her to physical violence, attempting to strangle her before sexually assaulting her. However, a stroke of luck came in the form of a knock on her door, causing Shelby to flee the scene, albeit not before subjecting the woman to a third assault. Through diligent investigative work, the police were able to match Shelby's DNA to the crimes, leading to his arrest. During the trial, Shelby's attorney, Brett Hall, attempted to argue that his client's behavior was a result of his chaotic environment. However, Judge Tom Ryan firmly rejected this argument, emphasizing that no circumstances can excuse such aberrant actions. Shelby faced charges of strangulation, sexual assault, kidnapping, burglary, and the unlawful use of a weapon, ultimately resulting in a staggering prison sentence of nearly 70 years. You would expect that he would be sorry for his crimes, but no. Throughout the trial and subsequent sentencing, Shelby maintained a disturbing silence, showing no remorse for the victims who bravely faced him in the same courtroom. And if you find Shelby to be the embodiment of pure evil, brace yourself for the shocking details of Keith Phillips' case. Meet Keith Merville Phillips, a name that's become synonymous with unrepentant pedophilia. Charged with a staggering number of offenses, including 9 indecent assault charges, 1 sexual assault charge involving a girl under 13, and sexual activity with a child, Phillips shocked the courtroom with his audacious denial of guilt. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented against him, he stubbornly insisted on his innocence, much to the disbelief of those in attendance. During his trial in December 2022, the jury heard an alarming litany of crimes committed by Phillips. The sheer magnitude of his offenses left the courtroom reeling. Ultimately, the jury found him guilty of almost 70 offenses, painting a horrifying picture of a man who repeatedly preyed on innocent victims. In the face of such damning evidence, one would expect a guilty individual to show remorse, to acknowledge the pain and suffering inflicted upon the victims. However, Keith Merville Phillips remained defiant, unyielding in his assertion of innocence. His complete lack of remorse only added to the chilling nature of his crimes. As the sentence was handed down, Phillips sat stoically, devoid of emotion. The judge, taken aback by his callousness, described him as one of the evilest defendants encountered, lacking any shred of remorse. It was evident to all in the courtroom that Keith Merville Phillips was a monster who had irreversibly shattered the lives of his victims. The deeply traumatized girls who had suffered at Phillips's hands courageously recounted their harrowing experiences. They spoke of the psychological scars they carried, resorting to drugs as a means to cope with the trauma inflicted upon them. One victim, in a poignant statement, referred to Phillips as a monster who had stolen her childhood. Eventually, the court delivered a resounding message with Phillips' sentence: 28 years in prison with an additional year on license. This meant that Phillips, if ever released, would not be eligible for parole until he reached the age of 82. Such a severe punishment reflected the gravity of his crimes, ensuring that he would spend the majority of his life behind bars. But it gets even darker from here when you hear the chilling case of the next unremorseful sex offender. Meet Andrew Philip Burrows, a 57-year-old resident of West Woodburn near Hexham, who recently found himself in the formidable walls of Carlisle Crown Court, facing the consequences of his heinous crimes committed in Cumbria. The litany of charges against Burrows was nothing short of horrifying, as he was convicted of 23 offences, including 9 counts of rape, one of which involved a child under the age of 13. Additionally, he faced multiple charges of sexual assault and the brutal mistreatment of a child. The courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of tension and unease as the victims bravely took the stand and shared their harrowing experiences, reading out their victim impact statements. Their testimonies painted a bleak picture of the profound and lasting effects of Burrows' actions. One courageous female victim revealed that Burrows' aberrant act had caused her to re-evaluate her stance on the death penalty, a statement that underscored the magnitude of the trauma inflicted upon her. Another victim recounted the nightmares and debilitating flashbacks that plagued her existence to the point where she contemplated ending her own life. The emotional toll was immeasurable. In a stunning turn of events, Burrows denied all the charges brought against him. However, even his own attorney, Judith McAuliffe, acknowledged the gravity of the offences, leaving no doubt about their serious nature. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Nicholas Baker carefully considered the victim impact statements and a comprehensive psychiatric report on Burrows. In delivering his judgment, Judge Baker did not mince words. He described Burrows as a destructive offender, posing a significant risk to the public. The judge chastised Burrows for his callousness and lack of remorse, highlighting the fact that he had shown not even the slightest hint of regret for his crimes and the devastating impact they had on multiple lives. It was a moment of profound disappointment, as the victims and their families hoped for some semblance of remorse from the man who had caused them immeasurable pain. The sentence that followed left the courtroom stunned. Burrows was sentenced to 24 years in prison, with a minimum term of 16 years before he would even be eligible for parole. Additionally, a 3-year license period was imposed upon his eventual release. The weight of his crimes would hang heavy over him until the age of 73, when he might have a chance at freedom. The next case is even more chilling. In a rather bizarre and unsettling case, Teddy Albert Allman, a 51-year-old man from Edinburgh, found himself in Bartholomew Circuit Court, facing serious charges, including rape, criminal confinement, and intimidation with a deadly weapon. What made this case particularly strange was that it took a staggering 4 years for Allman to stand trial finally, but the even stranger twist was that Allman himself had recorded the assault on video and audio, inadvertently providing the evidence that would seal his fate. The video, recorded on September 10, 2018, the very day of the attack, showed Allman ominously announcing the death and time as if he were keeping some twisted record. It was revealed during the investigation that he had brandished a knife during the assault. This wasn't Allman's first encounter with restraining orders, as 3 other women had already obtained such orders against him. Despite the overwhelming evidence stacked against him, Allman stubbornly denied the charges, claiming that the victim had invited him and that he never tied her up nor assaulted her. However, Judge Kelly Benjamin was not swayed by Allman's persistent denials. The judge, along with the 6-man, 6-woman jury, found Allman guilty of the charges. The sentence was severe: 35 years behind bars, with 28 years to be served without the possibility of parole, and an additional year to be served concurrently with the main sentence. In addition, Allman was given 7 years of probation. Throughout the entire trial, Allman displayed a complete lack of remorse for his heinous crimes. When the judge offered him an opportunity to address the court, Allman merely claimed that he was being misrepresented.